Welcome to the Hoja on Architecture podcast. Video Game Architecture, Chapter 7, Fictional Vernacular Architecture. The definitive study mentioned before, a detailed new method for vernacular architecture research, also covers the other vernaculars. The study lists the other vernaculars as follows: the urban vernacular, the new vernacular, the museum vernacular, the kitsch vernacular, and the fictional vernacular. The urban vernacular term encompasses suburban vernacular structures that are integral to the industrial economy. The new vernacular term covers the studies of formal architects who draw inspiration from vernacular architecture. Here, the works of Hassan Fathi, Jeffrey Bawa, and Charles Correa can be considered the pioneers. Museum vernacular refers to the concept of open-air museums primarily for the sake of romantic tourist appeal. However, examples are full of misconceptions, such as unrelated reconstructions and misleading images. Kitsch vernacular is characterized by a similar attitude, often involving awful hotel concepts that mimic vernacular architecture. They are unfortunately nothing but cosmetic and exaggerated copies of vernacular architecture built in formal methods. The final and most interesting other vernacular is the fictional ones. The term fictional here covers the unreal structures of novels, movies, and video games, especially those of the fantasy genre. Here, mostly non-existent cultures of humans or other civilized races are shaped, and among other material culture entities, architecture has a leading role in terms of storytelling. Buildings of distinct universes, or built worlds, from franchises like The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Avatar, The Last Airbender, and World of Warcraft, can be considered examples of superior quality. Whether they are level designers, art directors, or formally educated architects, their creators possess a deep insight into vernacular architecture. The fictional vernacular holds a unique position because it simultaneously draws from existing cultural vocabularies while also inventing entirely new ones. These imagined architectures do not merely reflect fantasy but rather reinterpret and reassemble elements from historical, regional, or speculative traditions to evoke believability. This requires a meticulous process of world building in which the built environment must harmonize with the imagined geography, economy, and social structure of the fictional society. The success of these spaces depends on their internal coherence. They must feel right to the viewer, even if the culture they represent is entirely fabricated. Thus, the fictional vernacular becomes a laboratory where both the visual language of architecture and the symbolic meaning of space can be pushed to their narrative extremes. In recent years, the study of fictional vernacular has expanded beyond its entertainment origins to become a serious academic topic. Scholars now examine how these imaginary built environments reflect contemporary anxieties, hopes, or critiques of real-world architectural practices. For example, the towering megastructures of cyberpunk worlds critique urban alienation, while the pastoral village-scapes of high fantasy idealize pre-industrial communal life. The fictional vernacular is not merely aesthetic, it also engages with memory, identity, and placemaking in symbolic ways. In this context, the categorization previously mentioned acknowledges not just the typological diversity of vernaculars, but also their epistemological scope, extending from the tangible to the imagined and from the historically rooted to the narratively constructed. Moreover, the inclusion of fictional vernaculars in academic discourse challenges the conventional boundaries of architectural study. By legitimizing imagined structures as worthy of critical analysis, it opens a broader framework for understanding how architecture functions beyond physical construction, as a cultural signifier, a narrative tool, and even a political instrument. This perspective allows researchers to trace how popular media influences public perceptions of architecture and heritage, often more powerfully than real-world examples. Fictional vernaculars, therefore, not only reflect the architectural imagination but also actively shape the collective understanding of what vernacular architecture is, could be, or perhaps should be in the future. They serve as the backbone of the world building, therefore, the storytelling. This concludes the Video Game Architecture Chapter 7, Fictional Vernacular Architecture. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.